Hey now, it's your boy PSA Sitch here with Adam, friended forever, and special guest Mark Ledwich, who made a much better. Here's the problem: you need to create a name for your alternative to the alternative influencer,
I know.
because no one knows what to call it.
Alternative influence report.
Yeah.
Yeah, I call it political YouTube.
No, see, it's got to be catchy. You need like the BTFO Becca Lewis report.
Oh, that's a good one.
So anyway, well, for those who don't know what we're talking about, you may remember a few months ago, Becca Lewis created this report that said basically everyone on political YouTube were all far right wing gateways to Nazis, and they had all the lines drawn everywhere, connecting everyone to the alt right. So then Mark came in and was like, "No, this cannot stand," and he made his own version of the report. Is that an accurate depiction of what happened?
Yeah, just over a long period of time. So I saw Eric Weinstein tweet about it, and I read the report, and I was pretty shocked at it. Kind of had the aesthetics of being research, but it really wasn't. It was quite obviously so. And then I read a lot of the articles about it, and I was just so shocked that the mainstream picked it up that hard, and they really ran with it really hard. And I think it's problematic because of I'm worried about censorship. So,
and
it always led that way.
And your stuff showed that there was a lot more recommendations to what's considered like left-wing sources, not right-wing sources.
Well, the recommendations are pretty neutral, as in, like, if you were to get like a dartboard and you were to put shapes on the dartboard the size of the viewership of channels, it's pretty random. Like, you get about the same amount of recommendations going each way. So I don't think it's biased that way. But there's a lot more people watching left-wing content.
Oh, okay, I see.
There's more right-wing channels, but there's way more people viewing left-wing content.
Were the left-wing channels more like the bigger ones were more mainstream, like news channels, where the right-wing channels or the center channels were just like independent people?
Yeah, pretty much. So the mainstream news is mostly left-wing on YouTube, and then you've got left-wing late-night comedy channels, and they're very political. Like, people get their news, like, if you consider news like just sense-making about what's going on, commentary on social events, they're really left-wing, and they get way more views than even the news on YouTube.
So now Adam is not muted. He's just not saying anything.
Yeah, let us know in the chat if my mic is working, because I believe I'm always the one that has a problem with the mic. But so you're saying, and this goes with just my gut intuition about YouTube as long as I've been doing YouTube, that the left-wing content does get massive amounts of views. And every once in a while, a channel will pop up, and immediately, I think they race to 100,000 subs if they have decent content, because there's just this insatiable appetite for left-wing stuff. But you mentioned retweeting Brett Weinstein. I think myself and Sitch both, and Brett Weinstein would classify as someone who's interested in, like, the facts. Show me the facts. We want to know the logic behind your arguments. We want to know the evidence behind your arguments. But I see there kind of being a disconnect on the left with rational arguments. So I think people need to be a little bit more ideological possessed, just in the current atmosphere, to actually produce left-wing content.
I don't know. I find it hard to judge, like, the amount of people that are totally have gone crazy with their partisanship, because I see plenty on the right as well.
Okay.
But it's definitely something new. It's like there's a religiousness about it now.
The stuff that you see on the right, though, just talking raw numbers, you're saying more people are watching left-wing content. There's more content creators on the right servicing a smaller audience, and there's less content creators on the left serving a larger audience, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's what the data says, and that's why I did it. I thought I knew YouTube had an API, like its application programming interface. It's like what you use when you write software to communicate, and I knew I could get the data that they should have used. So that's why I did it. I thought, well, a software engineer could get the information that they would want to talk about the issues they're talking about. So I did it.
The thing I think is, I made this argument probably a year ago or 2 years ago when I had a stream with Bearing, the YouTuber Bearing, and he was saying that there was a lot more. I'm getting an echo from you, Mark.
Oh, sorry.
Do you have headphones, Mark?
Yeah, I got headphones on.
Oh, okay. So I was saying that the left wing has a much bigger audience. Like they have much larger Patreons. They have like much more fervent viewers, and he seems surprised by that. But what you're laying out evidentiarily, I pretty much came to just on gut intuition. Why
Your
did
bias just happened to be right?
Why? Yeah, when you word it that way, it sounds so. It sounds so awful. No, I'm saying that my bias is always right.
Oh, of course.
So let's go. Let's get to the meat of the stuff here, though. Why did you?
Yes, look into the real issue.
I know. Actually, you labeled. I noticed you changed me too. Well, I didn't even have to bitch about it, which is completely awesome. So we constantly tout ourselves as enlightened centrists, and I honestly, we both go back and forth about how it really hurts us in viewership, because people really want tribal media. They want to know who you stand for. They want to root for you. They want it to be a football game, which I understand. I think Sitch understands. But you had labeled both myself and Sitch right wing.
Yes. So I've relabeled you guys centrists now that I've viewed more of your content, but I still think my definition of left-right is different to what you guys think.
You think that's an Australia thing? You think it might be the fact that we're Americans and you're Australian? Maybe just the cultural environment there?
You're an Aussie?
Yeah, but it's not because we're biased. It's because we have like a better perspective.
No, I was going to say that. That's but with us.
So for me, anti-social justice is a right-wing thing now. So you can be like pro-individualism and enlightenment values, but now that is a right-wing stance, because I think fundamentally left and right is defined by the left is whatever the current zeitgeist is about progress, and the right are the people that oppose it. And you're reducing a lot down to one dimension, but you just have to average it. It's like on most things, where do you stand? And there's enough people that are like, social justice is mainstream now, mainstream left. So if you oppose it, it's right wing.
That's my definition exactly.
But I guess you get into a problem because it depends on how you define progress. Because if you have a country moving forward into or progressing forward into like an authoritarian right-wing government, I mean, are they progressing or are they conserving?
Yeah, I guess. Well, that would be that's like socialism. So you're an authoritarian left-wing government.
Right, but if there's an authoritarian right-wing government.
Yeah.
Do you buy into the authoritarian left? Some people don't.
Yeah, I totally do. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's a fairly new thing. So it's like we went through the same thing in Australia because we have like a Christian background, comes from England, you guys as well. And the personality type where you're like predisposed, you don't like people having different opinions to you. You'll attach like a parochial just assumption that you're on the side of good. People that oppose you are wrong. That type of personality. Now you can grow up in a metropolitan city in Australia or America or England and get that same kind of attitude, but for whatever the current whatever you currently get from media or in your community. So because the Christians don't have like a hegemony on culture anymore, and you've got like the left wing's taken that over, you can be parochially left.
I totally buy into that as well, and I think the reason why there wasn't an authoritarian left, just from a sociological perspective, is that a lot of the sociologists and psychologists tended to be left wing. I don't know if you know about the RWA, the right wing authoritarian scale. Like it's even called the right wing authoritarian scale, which is hilarious. So they a bunch of social psychologists after the Holocaust, after the rise of Nazism, decided to figure out like what the personality type was that developed this. So a lot of that understanding was from a right wing was from a left wing perspective. So the bias was just kind of cooked into their tests and whatnot. So they just never really thought of the fact that people on the left could be authoritarians, which I think we're kind of catching up to now.
Yeah, totally. I agree with your assessment of that completely.
Yeah, they also...
Wait a minute. Before we got to go back to the main issue here. Okay. The main important issue about how we, Adam, are the great enlightened centrist of all time.
Well, you're practically a communist, though, so...
Maybe, but,
that's what makes it even funnier.
Is your main... So you're saying that your main definition point for left-right is just pushing towards whatever's defined as progress is the left and trying to maintain the status quo or go backwards to a pastime. Is that the right? Is that the main definition you're working from?
Yeah, or you just oppose that particular change. That's right wing. Like, you know how it started in France? So in the parliament, in the French Revolution, the people that wanted revolution would go on the left and the people that were for the king went on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And that was defined about whatever the revolutionaries wanted. The people on the right didn't even like the definition of that they had to be right. They didn't want to be called right.
Yeah, but doesn't
that's been the same throughout time?
To me, that seems like it's creates too much confusion, because you can have, your ultra right-wing libertarian types who are pushing for something new. They want no government or whatever. I mean, that's a right-wing position, isn't it?
Yeah, like libertarians, like they're hard to squish down to left-right because they like socially they're happy with anyone to do anything. So you can have prostitutes, you can smoke marijuana, and they don't care about that. And that's seen as like a left-wing thing.
Well, unless you're Ben Shapiro.
Yeah,
well,
so
I was thinking too.
He's
there's like
classic right-wing. He's totally classically right, I think.
Yeah, but isn't he economically super libertarian?
Yeah, but he's also socially conservative.
Right. So that's part of, I think, what gets the issue confused a lot with everyone is that, unfortunately, it seems like there is this divide between social and economic policies. Like, because we don't talk about it in our videos that much, but I know, I'm personally very left-wing economically, and I think Adam is too. Maybe not as much as I am, but
so like
there's on the progress issue, I see there could be two different groups that are pushing for different types of progress, which the libertarians stand out as one group and the progressives stand out as another. And the libertarians personality-wise are very much progressives, and they hate to hear this, but I make the case all the time. They're against government in the same way the progressives are against corporations. They both don't want to be constrained, but they pick a different enemy. So I think that pushing for radical change can be pinned on both libertarians and progressives, but there's also a key, and this is where I would say Sitch and I differ, because I think Sitch and I are for the same kind of progressive goals that the progressives are. We just think that their strategies are ridiculous, that how to achieve those goals are bonkers. So that doesn't necessarily make us right wing, because we are pushing for the same goals as them. We just have a difference on how to get there.
Yeah, that's where I started. And since reading like Nassim Taleb
Mhm.
and a few other conservative intellectuals, and now think that of the right as well. So like their idea of conserving like family structures, things like that, you can see that as trying to get the same outcomes.
Right.
So you look at everyone in that way.
Yeah, every single person, and not a lot of people don't realize this, but every single person wants to structure society how they think would be the best society for everyone.
Exactly.
It's just a difference of opinion on how exactly that is.
Yeah, but I think conservatives rarely articulate like a reason for that, because like a lot of, because it's the defense. I think the best defense for it, well, sorry, like a cultural evolutionary type one. So the cultures that have survived and did well, you don't know why, but there's all these fundamental reasons that we don't quite understand, and that changing it might ruin it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But I didn't hear that articulated. It wasn't until I can't remember who I heard it from first, but it's only in the last couple of years I've actually heard that argument articulated, and it's like the best one I've heard. Why don't we hear that more often?
It's probably not an argument people feel comfortable with making, because you're kind of saying, I mean, I agree with you, that's the case, but someone has to admit to themselves, oh, I don't know why anything works, but I'm afraid it's going to mess up if we change it a little bit. So we should just keep doing what we're doing. Like, people want to have a stronger, more, pushing forward idea of their worldview. They want to just be like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think conservatives are as afraid of change, though, as many people make it out to be. But I do think they are obviously more conservative on losing what we've already gained. So,
well,
so do you want to know why I labeled you right wing, other than
yes,
that's my definition of
yes,
right?
Explain to us your horrible thinking. Okay.
So I had to go through a lot of channels. I had 380 channels, and I had
How
to
long
actually
did this take you to do all this?
This took me probably about 5 weeks, and
That's
I would have
pretty good,
spent
considering
a lot of time like just watching YouTube, but I didn't spend that long per channel. And both of your channels looked like 100% anti-SJW, and like there's an aesthetic to it that it looks different to me now, but when I first looked at it, it seemed really clickbaity and a bit angry.
well, yeah, well, that's
You're calling my channel clickbait? I mean, angry, sure, but clickbait, how dare you?
I'm like the clickbait king, so
yeah,
like,
that's Adam. You're confusing us. What's going on?
But now I see, like, when I actually watch the content, I see a lot. There's a lot. It's a lot more lighthearted. Like you're doing it ironically almost, but it doesn't appear that way if you don't already know the content.
That's a good point. I need to consider this when marketing my videos in the future.
And the other thing is that your community, in terms of recommendations, right wing.
Right.
So give us how you did because your report basically says if somebody watches one of my videos, they're going to be recommended other channels. And is that recommended other channels at the end of the video or in the sidebar? How did you tally that information?
Yeah, so what appears on that sidebar, but it's for an anonymous user. So usually, like when you look at that when you're logged in, you'll get recommendations based on your viewing history as well.
Yeah.
Whereas I did just look at an anonymous user's recommendation, so it wasn't. It did end up being biased, but yeah, that means it's not quite exactly what people are seeing, but it should average out because your history, it'll be the algorithm based on your history. It would also be based on other videos. So if everyone kind of watched random videos to begin with, it'd probably end up the same. But it's like, yeah, it would be better if I could get that real list. But to do that, I would have had to get people to like install a Chrome extension that spied on exactly what they saw. So it's impossible. So this is better than looking at like who appears on channels, I think. And it's interesting in terms of trying to analyze like whether YouTube itself is being biased.
I am of the opinion that YouTube doesn't necessarily even know what's going on, that the algorithms have gotten so complicated that they just ask for a certain outcome. Like, I think right now they want to keep people on the site for as long as possible. And then the algorithms kind of take over with the strategies on how to do that. Do you?
Exactly. I read they released a white paper, like a research type thing, where they talked about their algorithm, and it tries to predict videos that they think people watch to the end and will like. And you can't describe in sort of English how it works. Like it just comes up with an answer,
Right.
and it's optimized based on the data that they have from other people watching videos in the past.
And it's so dangerous what Becca Lewis and all these other journalists now are promoting, because as we just saw, was a couple of days ago, YouTube saying, oh, they're going to stop recommending videos that they label as conspiracy theory videos now.
Right.
And it's all because of this kind of fake fear mongering about how, oh, there's all these conspiracy theories and far right wing videos being recommended to people because of these, BS reports. And then you come along like the savior and the white knight, and you say, no, you were all wrong. It's actually completely unbiased, and it's actually, in the middle of the road in terms of recommendations. And there isn't this right-wing conspiracy being toted on YouTube.
But yeah, unfortunately, like, it was shared a lot, but I think it was shared amongst people that already kind of wanted a rebuttal to it.
Right.
Like, it wasn't shared amongst those people. Yeah.
What was the impact of it?
Pardon?
What was the impact of this blog post and report? What?
I got a bunch of views. About almost 50,000 people opened the article, and about 5,000 people looked at the interactive graphic. But no one, only, I can't remember his name. Ooh. There was one left-wing YouTuber that did a small video on it, David Pacman, but he just focused on his recommendations and then the total views. He didn't present it as like rebutting any of the false narratives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's definitely on the left.
He's usually against a lot of the SJW stuff. He just doesn't like to talk about it.
Yeah,
because he doesn't want to lose his viewers.
Well, yeah, because that, and also because I think he's one of those people that kind of use it as like, oh, if you talk about it, you're just giving ammunition to the right. So we're just going to say it's not important, not focus on it, and on just complain about Trump. So no journalist contacted you. No one wanted to hear the truth.
Only right-wing journalists. So there was some right-wing. It was like a Canadian right-wing online magazine that did an article about it, and then another one that republished it. But other than that, no left-wing, no mainstream.
I'm surprised Breitbart didn't even want to cover it, because usually they're all over this kind of stuff.
No, nothing from Breitbart.
Where do you fall on the political spectrum?
I call myself heterodox because I'm not very moderate. Like, on any one issue, I'm usually on one side. But it falls on either side a lot of the time. So on average, I'll be in the middle somewhere.
Yeah. So you're the same as us.
Enlightened centrist.
Yeah. Well, do you have any more questions, Sitch? Or do you have anything more that you want to say, Mark? I don't know. I don't really know what more to ask about this. I'm very disappointed that it didn't make more headway. And I know that I spent a lot of time looking at it just because I found it fascinating. I guess the one question that I kept having was, each individual, they're tailoring the experience for each individual user. And even the way that you're looking at it, I don't know if this is an accurate picture of reality. And I don't even know if an accurate picture of reality can be gained. I wonder if someone at YouTube wanted to sit down and say, hey, make people like left-wing content and watch more of it. Like, if they had...
YouTube has this, so like they would know who's clicked on what recommendations. That's what you want to know, is like how the recommendations actually influencing people. They have the data, they could look at it, but there's nothing in there. It doesn't, releasing that information or report on it creates more problems for them than it solves, I think. I think that's why they don't.
Yeah, obviously it's just going to be a big headache for them. From a sociological perspective, though, from an argumentation perspective, the argument in the original report that you're trying to rebut was something to the effect of people go on to YouTube, just innocent people with no political perspective at all. I mean, that we could dive into whether or not that claim is true, whether or not anyone has any has zero political perspective. But then they watch videos, and they may watch innocuous videos, but sooner or later they kind of stair step from normal human being into this totally crazed right-wing ideologue. That's the argument that the report seemed to make. Does that seem fair? Or?
Yeah, that's what the report was saying, and it has the tone of like imagine like a really deeply conservative religious person like looking at the content from like gay and trans people.
Yeah, and turning gay.
I can imagine them turning gay. Like it's a really similar kind of thing, because they're not presenting any like, is that bad, or is there any evidence for that? They don't even need that. They just need to be shocked that it is happening. That's why most of it's kind of like, look at what they're doing, who are they? Look at who they're talking to, and read these quotes from what they're talking about and be shocked. Like it didn't articulate any much reason for what the report was actually saying.
Now, I don't see your report being a rebuttal to that. Maybe it is, because there is kind of an air of, no, people are funneled more towards left-wing content. My question is, could this actually happen? Could you turn left-wingers into right-wingers? Which I don't necessarily even know, just from a sociological perspective, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, it's possible. And you can go the other way. Like I was looking at some left-wing channels. I can't remember which one. I think it might have been, it wasn't ContraPoints, someone really closely associated with her had a lot of, actually no, it was the guy that you guys talked to who was a socialist. Zero Books.
Yeah.
Totally get all these right-wing recommendations and turn them all left in terms of the recommendations. But that doesn't mean they actually change their mind. It just means the influence that YouTube is having is towards the left just for that channel.
So wait, you mean he's being recommended on right-wing videos? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And then his videos are recommending left-wing videos.
Yeah.
Was that unusual?
That was unusual to be. Yeah, it was very unusual. So mostly you just stick within your group. So it goes. So if you're centrist, mostly centrist, right wing, mostly right wing. So I think because him appearing on your channel, I think means a lot of people might subscribe to him. If they like what he was saying, they'll subscribe to him. So if you cross-pollinate, your viewers do as well.
Was this change after he was on our channel, or was it?
I don't think so, but he might be doing things like this because he talked to. I had heard him before. At least someone from Zero Books, Doug Lane, spoke with Glenn Lowry, and that's how I got onto them. So I think that's if you talk across the aisle, I think your viewers also will subscribe across the aisle.
So this kind of debunks the narrative that people on the left have about how, you shouldn't bother talking to people on the other side because you're just going to be, giving a mainstream audience these far right positions, where you're showing it's like the opposite.
Yeah, well, I think it depends on how you talk. So if you're a left winger and you go on a right wing channel and you go on someone with less subscribers than you, and then you get angry and you get in your moral outrage on that video, that's not going to help you at all.
Right.
That's going to be. But if you go on a channel with much more viewers than you, and you sound nice and logical and give them a perspective they haven't heard before, totally that will help you. So it just all depends on the way you come across.
You hear that, libtards? Gotta go talk to the ConDumbs. I created that term, by the way.
Oh, did you? I didn't know.
ConDumbs. Yeah. So That's going to be the new term for 2019.
Good luck with that.
It occurred to me too that part of we have a predisposition to believe things that we've heard first just because we've heard them first, and people, obviously younger people have less experience, so they're not necessarily ingrained in a frame of mind. I often feel that people who watch YouTube, a lot of times they get disgruntled with videos when they don't mirror their personal perspective because they feel as though they are incorrect. So they come to the debate with a certain position. They're interested in your perspective on that position. But if you have a completely different perspective on that particular position, a lot of times they just say that you're flat out wrong, and they're gone. So it is a very interesting atmosphere on YouTube and the persuasion game. But I'm not convinced that this idea that, and it's funny it's on the left because it is very much a cultural construction idea that you can just turn right wingers into left wingers. My personal perspective is that people have certain gut intuitions about the world that tend to be left or right, and they're looking for different material that validates that gut intuition that they already have that's almost biological. So I don't know that we
have the depressing no free will take, is what you're saying.
Well, I do think people are susceptible to cultural change, but I think it's more a social thing. I think if you put a person who is a left winger with a bunch of right wingers, they're more likely to become right wingers just because their social circle is right wingers. But I don't necessarily think that is going to change their internal intuitions. I think they're more likely just to keep their mouths shut, to go along and get along. Seriously.
Yeah, I think when they make the argument that people turn right wing, I'm sure that's definitely true for some people, but you've got to weigh it up versus people going the other way, people turning left wing as well.
Well,
so you've got to make an argument for there's some sort of biased influence there. It's not just people talking about ideas.
Avi Tushman in his book, Our Political Nature, lays out a lot of evidence that people become more conservative over time too. So older people are generally going to be more conservative than younger people because they have more experience.
This is happening to you, and it never feels like you're getting more conservative. You feel like, oh, I just stand for these awesome principles that I'm maintaining, and everyone else is changing and getting crazy. This is what it always feels like.
No, I agree.
Are you saying that our perception of reality is false? Because I don't think that is the case at all. I think we're 100% right about everything. It's the world that's changing.
Yeah, I believe in alignment principles, and so this time we're right.
This time, exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone else was wrong. I agree with you with everyone that's not us. You're right, but not with us.
Well, you got to ask yourself if the people who have more life experience are conservative, if that's not an accurate perspective of the world, simply since they have more life experience. I mean, right?
Well, but then also, as you get older, you get more jaded. So I don't know if that's a valid way to frame it.
I look at left and right as the same exact way as you, Mark. The left is pushing for change, but I often see cultural evolution in the same way that I see actual biological evolution. That biological evolution takes place by random chance. So I think younger people tend to get some idea. Like right now we're experimenting with this 72 genders thing, right?
Yep.
But I myself think that it's a cultural evolution dead end. I don't see how you can structure a society with 72 genders. I don't know. Maybe they'll make it work. Maybe someone will start some small community somewhere that actually has, like, I don't know.
Oh, no, I think like some of the crazy ideas would just fall out of, like, people will stop believing in them. But at the end of the day, what might have happened is that people care less about gender, which I think would be great.
I have to push back, Adam, against it. I really don't like this proposing change is the left-wing definition? Because what's the time limit for what's considered change? Because like right now in the US, okay, abortion's been legal for what, 40 years, 50 years?
Correct.
So does that mean that people pushing for abortion to be illegal, so they're pushing for the change, that doesn't make them left-wing?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I mean, they can be pushing the parallel to that would be the prohibition era, because remember we did experiment with prohibition.
Right, that's a good
but
point.
we took it back because it turned out to be a huge nightmare. So I don't necessarily know. I mean, you're constantly gaining more information, and with as many factors as a society, really all you can do is tweak. So I really think the purpose of the progressive people group, I mean, there's some form of it in every nation. they're the people that want reform or change. And sometimes I think it can be changed for change's sake, arbitrarily speaking, just like in biological evolution, it's random mutation. But if that random mutation ends up being beneficial for society, then it's hung on to until it's not. Obviously, the environment can change and society can change in ways that maybe that mutation is no longer useful.
Does that still happen when societies aren't collapsing? So you could, like the normal argument for evolution would be you had lots of small societies competing, like in Europe, and you end up with one. But now, like we don't have collapsing societies. So is it the same?
Isn't Venezuela?
Is it still as good?
Isn't Venezuela a collapsing society? And
Yes, yeah, that is for sure.
the also I think Russia, the Soviet Union collapsed relatively recently. I think also there's two ways to look at it. Back in, thousands of years ago, they would have gone to war and just taken the territory and incorporated the people. All the people would have incorporated the norms of the invading army. We don't do it that way anymore, but we very much compete in an economic sense, where and it's a much healthier competition because we're competing to produce more. But even now, we're competing on technology. I would argue that that not many people are aware, but I believe China and the United States are in an arms race to achieve artificial intelligence, which I think is going to be a game changer as far as developing economies go. So.
The Chinese. I think the Chinese are going to win that because they collect a lot more data.
Yeah.
And if you're working on AI, you've got all this, like a much better data set about people with a wider range of things that they're doing that you can access. So I think they're going to progress quickly.
We have a government structured on taking things slow, and the environment has changed to the point where I think their government, and nobody's going to like hearing this, but they don't have the kind of log jams in their political system that we have. So they can capitalize on opportunities that we can't necessarily capitalize on because we don't have the political infrastructure to grab those things. So
it's easy to go fast when you don't have morality blocking the way.
Yes.
They've also got like the first mover disadvantage. Like, let's say there's a real problem with AI or like the social credit system, things like that.
Right.
They will suffer from those. And like as someone that's not the first mover, you can pick and choose things that work for other people. So that's its own advantage as well.
Yes. Yeah. Facebook fell into this against MySpace.
So do you think, because I've disagreed with Adam about this a lot. He thinks AI is just around the corner, and I'm like, no, this is still pretty far away.
Yeah, no, we're not even close.
Validation.
Well, let's end the show there. I think now that it's 2 against 1.
Yeah.
See, I told you I'm right about everything.
Not that many. Like a lot of my peers think it's closer than I do, and it's not like the fact that I'm a software engineer, I wouldn't give much weight because it's really speculative, and often like historically the experts have been wrong about these things. Not that I'm an expert, but
well, the way I look at it is like if if they can't even program AI for video games right, and in those situations, it's like they can literally program the entire world into the AI itself, and presumably with general AI, you can't program the world into it. It has to react to things.
Did you see yesterday? Well, last week they released a video about StarCraft AI. So StarCraft 2, they've got AlphaStar, which is like Google's DeepMind implementation.
Mm-hmm.
They played Mana and beat him 4-1 on like Protoss, first Protoss.
The AI beat the guy, or the guy beat the AI?
The AI beat the guy.
Yeah.
Is he like the best StarCraft player or something?
He's a professional, so he plays and he's up in the top.
What is different than my question is, I think maybe we're just having a difference of opinion on what the definition of AI is, because like when my thinking is when Google can go into the YouTube algorithm and say, turn right wingers into left wingers so they can win political elections. They don't necessarily know how the algorithms are doing it, but that's an artificial intelligence function.
Yeah, that exists. We've already got that.
Yeah, see?
So yeah, but we're talking about generalized AI. That's a term that I always
general
hear
AI, yes.
Yes.
So what people are worried about is like the singularity. It's when it's kind of, it can self-improve itself and have its own goals separate to what we said. I think that's what people are really worried about, and that's what most people that have doomsday scenarios talk about, that kind of AI. And I don't think we're anywhere near close to that.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about that kind of AI. I'm talking about the Chinese have some algorithm that they can say, hey, we want this person to win the presidential election in the United States. And the algorithm develops its own strategies using the assets at its disposal and makes that happen for the Chinese.
Yeah, we're close, if not already there.
Yeah, we're already there, definitely.
Okay.
So in terms of like personal advertising, you can develop profiles around people, and you can target messages based on what they're likely to be influenced by. And it's really crude, but I can see that improving really quickly.
Now, how would you not call that weaponized AI?
It would be, I guess.
Yeah,
or weaponized algorithm. See, I don't know, because when you say AI, I think of, you're talking about an algorithm or a program that you don't have to specify the parameters. You don't have to say, oh, we're creating a program that's just about figuring out who's going to win, the presidential election.
Right.
AI or generalized AI is, oh, we're just creating a program and you can just set it to do anything and it'll figure it out on its own.
Yes.
But see, I'm assuming we're way far away from that.
Well, I mean, you could configure an AI to like find a cure for cancer and that kind of stuff too. Just using all of the, like, potentially there's a cure for cancer out there already, just in all the medical research that's been done, but we don't have the apparatus to look at all that medical research in the same kind of way and sift for patterns. So that's also a game changer. Well,
they're doing that kind of now. So they're looking at, like, when you're screening for cancer, trying to detect where something looks like a cancer.
Yeah, no, I know. They're doing it.
AI is already better.
Exactly.
And then they're also on the genetic side looking at huge databases of people whose genomes have been sequenced, trying to look at what might be causal.
So let's read our super chats in case they have to do with actually the report.
It's not my fault. Hey, what's going on? Note for $2. Note, I have a bunch of emails with Morton Bay.
Okay.
I don't know who that is. Who's Morton Bay? Does anyone know who that is?
We're confused by another chat. Okay.
Morton Bay is a Danish journalist. To Google.
A very dead horse for $4.99. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of people who turn right from being annoyed with the left wing YouTube channels? Fact checking TYT is what pushed me right.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I thought we might get an interesting perspective. You want to go first, Sitch? Or go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, you go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I think when journalists get it so obviously wrong, it bursts people's bubble about mainstream media. I think the latest thing with the Covington High School would have been that for a lot of people, because they actually, like, we kind of live in a different world. Like, depending on your circles, you'll get different narratives about everything that happens. And that one was one of the few times it gets kind of reversed. So I think that can change people's political opinions when they start questioning their sources.
Yeah, I agree too.
You know, it's annoying because I see it seems like there was a lot of YouTubers who were kind of, anti-SJW types, and they've, like, because of Trump or because of other issues, because of other people who they used to consider friends with that they view as pushing to the right, they've kind of, like, backtracked, and they've kind of tried to push themselves back to the left, but now they're all, like, friends with the SJWs. It's like they can't just exist as the enlightened centrists in the middle like we can.
Because the SJWs are always holding them to some purity standard.
Well, it's weird to see people who were against the SJWs and now, like, they're all friendly with them against Trump. And it's like, okay, if you don't like Trump, that's fine. I don't like Trump. But why do you have to align yourself with the people that supposedly you were so against, like, a year ago?
Did they change their mind about things, or did they just do different content on their channels?
Well, it seemed like, I'm trying not to name any names. It seemed
No,
like
I
there
know
were
what
YouTubers.
we want to hear names.
There seemed like there were YouTubers who were making anti-SJW content.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden now you see that they're all, like, friends with those people.
I'm
And
gonna
I'm like,
say,
okay, maybe
like,
they did just legitimately change their minds. I don't know, but it doesn't feel like that to me.
am I
My
allowed
gut
to name
intuition.
names? I'm thinking
You can name names.
I
I'm not
could
gonna
take
name
a
names.
guess. I mean, it seems like Shoe on Head and Armored Skeptic are friends with a lot of SJWs.
Yeah, but they're not. See, but I would say they're the opposite of what I'm saying, because they haven't.
They're enlightened centrists, right?
Yeah, they haven't changed their position on anything.
Yeah,
So I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about smaller YouTubers.
Someone in the chat said Woz Lee, which
Well, the Woz Lee thing is really weird because I don't know exactly what sparked that, but he has, I don't know, it seemed like he had some beef with Sargon, and then that for some reason propelled him completely in another direction, which makes no sense. But it goes back to what you're saying about how people just pick tribes. They don't care about issues whatsoever.
yeah, it's fun. Rage bait.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Like, even though you guys are centrist, you do mostly anti-SJW content. So it's like I could see that going the other way, someone being a centrist and doing mostly anti-right content.
Sure. I mean, well, here's the thing. I guess it depends. We kind of use the term centrist as a kind of like a joke and as like a wink. And to when we use it, at least as I'm assuming the way Adam uses it, it's just not tribal. Right? Is that how you're using it, Adam?
Yeah, definitely.
Because like if we were to take political compass tests, we would both we'd both end up on the left.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are out of date. Like I take one and on the
they're
left as
awful.
well.
They're
Yeah.
awful. They ask these questions that are like from the 1950s.
Yeah,
Like, is it okay to spank your kid? Hell yeah.
Like,
no way. We have
right.
video games we could take away from them. Are you kidding? They would love to be spanked.
Like our parents, they were all about economic issues. Like if you were on the left, you wanted to distribute money, collect taxes.
Right.
And if you're on the right, you were like anti-big government and wanted people to be free from like government interference. But now that doesn't seem like as big a thing.
So does that mean that me and Adam we're just fucked because we don't get to define what means left and right? It's all these assholes pushing society in one direction or the other.
So they'll turn you right. Like you'll be classified as right pretty soon.
But here's the problem is that the politicians themselves are not caught up. They're working off of the old definitions of left and right. They're not at least in America. They're not working off of these new definition.
I looked at the Democratic Party's website, and it was really intersectional. So if you look at
that scares the hell out of me.
So if you look at like the navigation, it's by oppressed identity.
Whoa.
You go to the bottom, look at the mind map. You can look at the oppressed identities. That's how you navigate the page.
Really?
Yeah,
Let's
have a
go
look.
with that. Well, this is the DNC page you're talking about, right?
Like, I mean, I've looked at the address. I think it's like
Democratic National Committee page.
Democrats.org.
Yeah, the
Democrats.org.
DNC page. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a dangerous sign. I'll be worried when the politicians that are running. I mean, start pushing this SJW stuff, because right now the only ones I can think of are like Christian Gillibrand and AOC, who they're the ones pushing this kind of intersectionality stuff. But it seems like the mainstream Democrats are not, and it seems like the mainstream Republicans they're still pushing, for the most part, I would say, typical neocon values. It doesn't seem like the Republican Party has changed their stance in the last 20 or 30 years, except for Trump, but he kind of, gets classified as his own thing.
Isn't one of your main things going after where people get it incorrect? Like, to say we're anti-SJW, I always feel like we're more anti, like, logic, reason, and evidence. And it just, the SJWs are on the other side of that so much that it just appears that because I would say in a perfect world, I would call myself a social justice advocate, because I'm all for people getting the equal opportunities in our society. I just differ on the strategies to get us there.
Yeah, so I guess my only critique would be on like just topic selection. So it's how much you do videos either way. If you want it, not that it's like you can do whatever you want. I like your content.
Well, Sitch is obsessed with
centrist.
Sitch is obsessed with Riley Dennis, so that's probably a good.
I haven't made a Riley Dennis video in like
a good fifth
year,
of his...
I think. So no, I mean, I don't have any problem being labeled as anti-SJW. In fact, it bothers me that people have decided to move away from the SJW label, and they're starting to label people as leftists now, which maybe that goes into with your point, but I really don't like that, and I think it's a bad idea that we've kind of given up. We can't say SJW anymore because the label has been too overused, and we're just going to get rid of it. I think we're losing the war on that one.
What is the war? What is the objective of the war?
Well, because if people are going to start labeling SJWs as just leftists, then you're just associating the SJWs as just that's the left. You're cementing that as the mainstream left position by calling them leftists.
Right. So they're forcing you into the right wing camp is what you don't like.
Well, they're not. I mean, here's the problem: is that here's why I don't agree with this forcing us into the right wing. Because we've seen people who were on the left and they just became right. Okay, Dave Rubin, perfect example. Okay, he's not a centrist. Like, his talk with Joe Rogan, he's talking about like, private business does everything better than government. Like, he's totally become right wing.
But only because he's in that social circle. Seriously.
But you don't think he's being truthful when he says all that stuff?
I think there are people that don't have strong intuitions about things, so they cheat. They go off of what other people's intuitions are. And I'm serious. I'm dead serious.
No, I think you're right. But to me, that someone who doesn't have a strong intuition or strong grounding in some specific principles, and then they get pushed to the right, like Dave Rubin, or what's the Candace Owens, who gets pushed to the right or whatever.
Yeah.
To me, that's
who has no intuitions.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, that's getting pushed to the right, but we're not getting pushed to the right. We're just getting pushed into fucking nowhere space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until I see the right wing in America and right wing politicians in America start talking about moderate economic policies and, moderate social policies, then I'll agree with you. But that hasn't happened yet. That's what I'm saying. Do you think Republicans in America have become more moderate? Because I don't see any evidence of that.
You asking me?
I'm asking you.
I don't necessarily. I mean, the Conservative Party believes in moderation in general. What do you
mean by I don't agree with that
where do you see the extreme positions? Because I've seen the conservatives disown radical right-wing positions like identitarianism and
Right, but
racism
that's
and stuff like that.
really, I'm not talking about that.
That's
I'm talking about
rare.
like,
I mean, they did it all in the Covington thing.
no. I'm saying I'm not talking about, far right white nationalism or anything like that. I'm talking about, 90s, early 2000s, George W. Bush, neocon positions, all taxes are bad. We need to cut taxes as much as possible. We need to stop giving people money. We need to have everything be privatized. Like all these positions, which I consider standard Republican positions, haven't changed. I mean, that was the last tax bill a couple of years ago that they just pushed through. It was
Yes.
just give
They've changed on gay marriage.
Yeah, that too.
right.
Yeah.
They have been guilt as they've been guilted into changing on certain issues because they know they can't. It's kind of what you were saying is if you're in a social situation and everyone around you has kind of said, "Oh, you can't do that anymore," then you just kind of give in.
Yeah, I totally have seen that happen. So my family's quite religious, conservative,
Hmm.
and I used to shut up about those issues at like family gatherings, and now they do. So I can speak openly knowing that the zeitgeist is with me, but that used to be the opposite.
Right. No, but so you don't, Adam. You don't think. Do you see what I'm saying? You don't think that the Republicans have changed at all, or do you think they have?
I don't. I. I mean, I don't know exactly. I think in terms of specific issues, I don't necessarily think in terms of.
Well, let's
Just,
talk about economic tax cuts and the obsession with privatization.
yeah, I see the world. I see who isn't against tax cuts. I mean, people want tax cuts.
The
The
Democrats aren't
I
typically in
see.
favor of tax cuts.
I'm very cynical about politics. Okay,
Okay.
I see the world in when you elect a political party, you're electing a team that is going to reward you at the expense of the other team. And that's why people are so obsessed with having their party in power because they're like, think about it. AOC is talking about when she's in power, she's going to tax the rich, right? And give all
Right.
these social programs to the poor or to her party. That is very much a manifestation of your party who is out of power is going to lose resources at the expense of the party that's in power. Now look at it's the opposite right now, right? Trump is in power and he wants to take the money and spend it on a wall, what he promised to his supporters. So his supporters are going to gain at the expense of the people who are out of power. That's exactly how it works. What's that?
Like economically, were people voting with their selfish interests? I thought it was more like rather than your individual situation, the government benefiting you, it's more like your vision for society.
Yeah, it's
You wouldn't have
both.
to benefit directly. It could be you could lose out, but still vote for that party because you believed in their vision of the world.
Yes, I think people vote for their groups. They vote for the vision of their groups.
Yeah, and going back to like something like being pro-life, like let's say that wasn't politicized, it wasn't seen as like a political issue, and then AOC comes out being pro-life, that would totally go along tribal lines, just the opposite ones. Like I think a lot of like we're trying to define what is left and right, but sometimes it's just historical accident, like the QWERTY keyboard, what
Right.
tribe it happened to go on.
No, I
But there's
believe that all the time. Historical
yeah.
accident is a perfect perfect way to put it.
Critters Buggin for 279 Canadian said SJWs equal all the left, aka what Tim Pool quote reports. And Big Kev Sexy Man for $5 says Republicans haven't changed on economic issues because they haven't really lost on those issues.
Yeah, I don't. There's doing things for strategic reasons, and there's doing things for. Oh, geez, this is part of the problem that I see. I see politicians doing things for strategic reasons. I think politicians only do things because it will keep them in power. And
I don't know. I mean, look, wait. I don't disagree with that. I mean, I made a whole fucking video. My last video was all about that.
Yeah, exactly.
But they still the issues that resonate with the voters have to resonate with them for a specific reason.
Right, but
so the politicians still have to put up the facade that they're agreeing with those issues. And I guess what I'm saying is, using your viewpoint, the facade that the Republican Party is putting up, or at least the politicians are putting up in order to get elected, are the same issues that they've been pushing for the last 30 years. And I don't see them changed on anything except for, they've changed on gay marriage because I feel like they have to.
The thing about you're saying that they haven't changed. I mean, they're developing a winning coalition, an audience that is into those issues. Changing those issues radically would disturb that audience potentially. So,
oh yeah, I'm not criticizing them for changing. I'm just saying that's why I don't feel it's accurate to say that we're being pushed to the right or to the Republican Party, because they haven't changed and I haven't changed. So this is why I'm saying it's kind of pushing. I feel like it's pushing me into a void, into a negative space that maybe
that doesn't
exist.
Yeah, you're not in a tribe. That's why you're centrist.
But when you say the Republican Party hasn't changed, like Trump has changed a fair bit, do you think that will reset? It will just go back to the way it was?
I think Trump has changed in terms of how people are okay with politicians basically, saying whatever they want and being assholes on Twitter to other people. I mean, one of the things I thought was interesting about what Trump, when he was running, was that he was actually pushing some classical left-wing economic policies in terms of, he said, oh, we're going to tax the hell out of companies that, put their money overseas and put jobs overseas. And he talked about all this pro worker rights protectionism and all this other stuff. But I haven't seen, none of that stuff has really come to fruition. And maybe if that stuff had come to fruition, then I would agree with you. I'd say, oh, wow, he is pushing things to the left or to the center, at least in some areas.
Well, he increased tariffs, which is really anti-free trade.
Right.
Yeah, and he has increased NAFTA as tariffs.
Well. But it's weird because it's like, it seemed like nobody really wanted that. And I'm not
Will the next if the Republicans get in, it's not Trump, do you think they'll reverse it, or do you think that's
they will reverse it? I think they will 100% reverse that. Because when we hear Republican voters, like not politicians, but like voters talk about issues, I mean, how many people you hear talk about like, oh, I'm so happy Trump's putting tariffs? It's like one of those things it doesn't seem like people really care about. They care about the wall, they care about immigration, they care about all this transgender stuff.
I've heard some economists defend it, and I never thought I'd hear that.
Defend the tariffs?
Yeah.
Fascinating. Left wing or right wing economists?
They're not easy. I assume they're right wing, but they don't give off any of the normal signals.
Mm-hmm.
It's not obvious to tell.
I mean, I don't know a lot about the tariff stuff, but I would argue in favor that there probably needs to be more than there are. Well, actually, I don't know. We've talked about this on a stream, didn't we, Adam? About how it's kind of too late. Like, this is all, the worker protection stuff kind of had to happen in the 80s, and it just didn't. And now we're just kind of fucked.
Yeah.
With globalization. All Out of Bubblegum for $10 says, do you think the Covington Catholic School incident has changed how the youth view the left and forcing some youths to change their political views more to the center and to the right? And I would say, yes, I do. I think that's always what I felt like my main position against the SJWs is that I feel like they're just pushing people away. They're just pushing people away from the left. That's why I guess I want to disassociate the SJWs with the left as much as possible.
Yeah, what is your ultimate goal on the political spectrum business, Sitch? I mean, you're obviously difficult to place, I guess, and you keep talking about how you're being pushed into nowhere land. I mean, I guess I'm comfortable being in nowhere land, and I always considered being a centrist kind of being in nowhere land.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, my channel's goal, I don't really have a goal specifically on the channel except just to make funny videos and to get views.
Yes.
But my political goal has been I don't like the SJWs pushing people away from the left because I consider myself to be on the left.
Mm.
That was that was my original motivation, and that's still where I am. And I want the left, the mainstream left, to wake the fuck up and to say, hey, we're not going to associate with this far left authoritarian SJW nonsense anymore. We're just going to throw them out of our party.
Yeah. They don't really vote anyway, so I mean they vote on Twitter for getting more diversity in movies, but they don't really vote at the ballot box. So I don't know. We should.
I don't know if that might not be true, but
we should wrap this up. We're getting off topic, and I don't know that we can say much more about the report. I do thank you for doing it. I wish it had a bigger impact. You can't. The reason why I think the first one had such an impact was because the left, it perfectly fit their narrative. Their narrative is life is culturally constructed, and we really have to worry about what we teach people. And I don't think the right does feel education is important and whatnot, but I don't know. What is your take on that?
I think like just technology has really changed things in terms of communication. So social media have meant that like channels like yours is just part of this big thing of democratizing information exchange. And that's good in some ways, but the problem is we basically live in separate realities now. So depending on your community of information, you'll see the same events really differently, and it's really hard to cross that. So increasingly, like even the language you use change and gives you away. So it's really hard to talk across because they'll see things that you find sensible as like dog whistles or like obviously places you somewhere in one of the tribes, and then they can't hear you anymore. So yeah, I think that's permanent, and it's not like people changing it. I think it's technology changing it.
The language thing is super interesting because I know the left and the right now both use two terms as an insult. They use safe space and they use snowflake constantly. But it's both sides are using it as you're a snowflake. No, you're a snowflake. No, you're a snowflake. But it's like they have that common language, that common insult. It's interesting that both tribes share it. But there are words, like you said, problematic, and I was thinking, oh, we can't use that on this because it's one of those. It totally gives you away. So there are these words that just once you say it, like if someone says word salad, we know okay, they don't like Jordan Peterson. Like
I think Jonathan Haidt's really good at. I think he does a lot that no one really understands, so he avoids all of those things really carefully.
Yes, he does. He does. There are places that I know though, like he quoted Van Jones in his book, and I kept thinking, oh my God, you're killing all the right wingers just tuned out. Like they hate Van Jones. They hate Van Jones. So I wish he could have found a better person to quote. So he does, and I think it gives Jonathan Haidt away that he is on the left, that he doesn't know where he's stepping on the right's toes as much. Where I feel like Sitch and I know when we're stepping on left-wing toes or right-wing toes. It's super interesting though. It's super interesting stuff. Just for fun before we go. So I'm making an argument that the reason why the original report had such buy-in from the left-wing media is because it catered to a certain narrative. What narrative could we give your report that would cater to the right wing? Because I was trying to think, what would the right wing snap up? Because they wouldn't necessarily snap up that narrative that YouTube was turning people into right wingers. I think it's too against their worldview.
You have to create the narrative that YouTube is purposely and intentionally trying to push people away from the right and into the left.
Oh, exactly. Yes, it's a government conspiracy. It's deep state.
Right-wing narrative is that mainstream media is lying to people, and it totally fits that narrative.
Okay, so did you think about this at all before you put it together?
No, I'm more concerned about getting like the truth. So I didn't want to put I didn't want any obvious like political spin on it.
The truth,
and that's why the report didn't blow up.
Yeah, I know.
You cared about the truth.
The truth needs a little help from good people.
Don't listen to Adam. Don't listen to Adam.
I'm just saying. Well, the whole AOC thing, like this report could completely go viral. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's not capable of going viral. The AOC meme of her dancing was, I mean, that thing had been around for months and months and months. I had it, and I kept wondering, why isn't this viral? Why didn't this go? This is so amazing. Why didn't it go viral? And then like 3-4 months later, it ends up going viral because the narrative was correct for it. And we are just story processing machines as human beings. So I don't necessarily know what would get that. And I don't know that it would help your cause if it was on right-wing media, if it was on Breitbart, if it was on Fox News.
It would be worse. Like I want the people that read left-wing mainstream media to read it.
So do you want the left-wing people to pick it up?
Yeah.
So it's impossible then, because it's like, I mean, it's not what they want to believe. It has to be what they want to believe in order for the left wing to pick it up.
Yep.
Well, first you have to come up with a name. You need a name.
Yeah, but the name has to embody the narrative. Like that's the whole point of it. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah. Well, we love talking about this stuff because, I'm more. Well, this is where I disagree with Sitch. Like, why wouldn't you? How do you spread the truth? The truth ain't gonna spread itself, Sitch. I'm telling you.
Look, I can be idealist, and you'll be the cold skeptic.
I'm a pragmatist, man. Seriously.
Yeah. Our favorite super chatter, Darth Fagit, for $10 said, "Wars are waged and won with words. Nukes are a good thing."
I completely agree.
So there you go. But the most important thing to discuss, we discussed before the stream, and that was that you told us the correct way to say Aussie, so that Phalanx will stop yelling at us.
Aussie,
like Ozzy Osbourne.
Yep. And if you say Aussie, Australians will reply oi, oi, oi. So if you see a crowd yell that out, I'll guarantee you.
Oh, that's awesome. Oi is just a fun thing to say.
Right,
so I guess
it started with that one.
So I guess we'll wrap it up there. Do you have any closing thoughts? Any social media you want to plug, Mark?
Social media. No, I'll plug my report.
Yeah, I have it.
Put a link to the report in the description of the video.
Yeah, I have it up on screen too, so you can see his name and you can check it out. The data portion, there's a link in the report, and you can look at the data portion. It's completely fascinating. But you can see all those big left, all the huge left wing circles. So I think you did prove that the left wing media does kind of control everything. So. All right, stop it with the super chats, guys. We got 2 more super chats, and we'll end this.
It's not my fault for $2 twice. Said, "Are you going to join the intellectual light web with Jesse Single?"
I don't know.
Well, Mark,
I don't know what that is. I did follow. Thanks to It's Not My Fault, I did follow Jesse Single, but I didn't know much about him. So I did see Jonathan Haidt was following him. So
he's a guy who was kind of like considered more SJW, but then he took a pretty strong stance. I don't know if it's fair to say he took a strong stance, or he just started making articles about transgender stuff, and specifically about transgender children, I think.
Mm-hmm.
and like maybe we shouldn't be,
Oh,
going at
really?
100, 100 miles per hour towards this stuff. And of course, if you dare say anything like that, you are branded as a transphobe and a traitor to the cause. And he has been thus attacked relentlessly for this, ever since then.
Well, I'm glad I followed him. It's not your fault. I actually pointed out that he retweeted one of my Jordan Peterson videos. That's why. That's why I followed him.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
He's like he concentrates on science a lot as well, and he's happy to debunk some of the bad science from psychology.
Yeah, I always put a placeholder in there when I find somebody or meet somebody and just try to figure out where they are. Isn't it weird that we do that? It's like, is this guy in my tribe or what? But it sounds like he is. So do you want to end it there, Sitch? And
one more super chat. A very dead horse for $2. Oh, before I forget, eat the poor. Thank you very much.
That's great advice for a pragmatist. So we are doing another stream after this too. We should say we're doing a stream with we're gonna do the Deepak Chopra video. Deepak Chopra and Don Hoffman on.
Yes, Adam has worn me down. He kept beating away every day. Every day he would send me a DM and say, "When are we gonna do the Deepak Chopra video? When are we gonna do it?" And I finally said, "Okay."
I saw there was a lot of comments in our last one that wanted us to do it. So
of course you did. You're only saying that because I don't read the stream comments. So
you don't read really? You don't read the comments? I'm the only one reading the comments.
You're the only one reading the comments. That's not true. I read the comments that are positive about me. I
elitist
in the search bar
elitist confirmed right here. PSA Sitch, liberal elitist.
There you go.
Where's your latte, Sitch? Is that why you don't go on camera? Because you got a big fat latte there? Are you live streaming from your limousine right now? You limousine liberal?
I'm live streaming from Starbucks.
Sure.
I'm actually in Starbucks right now.
So
everyone needs to see me streaming, except for the people I'm actually streaming with.
So thanks for coming on, Mark. You can always talk to us on social media and stuff like that. It's great to get the insight on how you put this together. And thanks for putting it together, man, because it's obviously was a lot of work. 5 weeks is a huge investment.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
If you want to develop that right wing narrative and we can get this thing on Fox News, just DM me. We'll take care. We'll take care of you.
Adam will be your manager.
Think about it. We need it. We need a big picture of AOC on the front of it with like a bullseye on her. Like, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
So do you want to end the stream, Sitch? I think it's on your end.
Okay. So
take care. We'll see you in like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, 10 minutes. We'll see. See you then.